What story does your personal space tell about you? Look around your home. What do you see? A photograph of a family member perched on the wall? Bananas on the kitchen counter? Perhaps a blanket knitted by your grandmother thrown on the couch? The items you keep tell your story. For Ricky Boscarino of the grand and whimsical Luna Parc, you would find cork-lined kitchen walls, an intricately mosaiced bathroom from floor to ceiling with a shower trickling through the center of the room. In this episode, Ricky and I discuss his journey as an artist, his process, and how Luna Parc came to be the viral destination that it is today, and some of his other intricate, beautiful artworks. I first visited Ricky's Luna Parc in 2024. Some people have the Grand Canyon on their bucket list. For me, it was Luna Parc, and to say it exceeded expectations is an understatement. It is a visionary smorgasbord that channels Willy Wonka, Dr. Seuss, and the mastery of centuries-old craftsmanship. The thrill of experiencing Luna Parc still resonates with me today. Before we kick off, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was recorded. I am recording this podcast from the ancestral homeland of the Nooksack, Lummi, and other coastal Salish people. And Ricky is recording from the ancestral homeland of the Lenape people. I'm so excited to welcome Ricky to the Friday Featured Artist Podcast. Hi, Ricky.
Wow,
Welcome.
what an amazing introduction.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
They do a beautiful job, don't they? They do an amazing job.
That's wonderful. Great.
Yeah.
Great.
I want to start by just saying hello to all of those beautiful folks out there that are joining us live, and also just hello to the folks in the future that are going to be watching this or listening to the podcast. My name is Clarissa Callison, and I am a Take Two tutor, and I get to guest interview here occasionally. And when I do, I get to pick who I interview. And I am interviewing the amazing Ricky of Luna Parc. And I'm so thrilled to invite him to join us today.
Great.
Yes.
Well, it's a thrill to be here, and it's always wonderful to have a new audience. And of course, I like the showmanship. I actually try to remain very humble about my home. It is a big spectacle, and it's funny how people think I'm all kooky and crazy, but I'm actually very quiet and reserved, very gregarious. But it was quoted in an article many years ago: if a house speaks for a person, my house can't shut up. So yes. Oh, and I want to note that recently at Take Two, our video series has expanded into a podcast series also. And I want to encourage those listeners, because we're going to have so many beautiful visuals, I want to encourage you to check out the notes that are underneath the podcast, or go to YouTube and watch the video, because you're not going to want to miss all of these beautiful images, for sure. So I want to just tell my story a little bit about Luna Parc. Tell Ricky, tell the audience. My passion is art environments. And one of the things that I experience when I'm in an immersive art environment, for me, it's almost like church. I feel this vibration through me of all of the thousands of hours of work and the passion. And I think even just, connecting into that creativity through the years. So like I said, it's my church. And, bucket lists, we all have bucket lists. And a lot of people, it's the Grand Canyon, it's the Taj Mahal. And mine literally was Luna Parc. And Ricky was so gracious last spring to allow myself and my family to come and visit. And it was beyond expectation. So that's my history about Luna Parc. And what we are going to do is we're going to take you on a little tour. But before I get started with the images, I would love to ask you, Ricky, to paint a picture for our audience. Let's paint a picture, especially for our listeners, of what Luna Parc is if you'd never seen it before.
Ooh, that's a tough question. So, well, when people come here, as yourself, I mean, people are like amazed at the volume of different installations around the house. But really, this is such a culmination of 36 years. So, you know, it's hard to separate that. It all happened slowly in some respect, very fast in some respect. And it's almost like it sort of crept up on me and was like, all of a sudden, now I've been here 36 years. And even now I kind of reflect on the years and the progress and the process. And I actually can't believe it. I can't believe how far this has come. And I think some of that was because I was so involved in the process and, you know, in every aspect of it, making work, mainly jewelry and ceramic work to support it. And that's one part of it. And then the actual physical labor that I've done over the, you know, decades that I've been here. So it's hard to kind of express what it is. It's probably the most frequently asked question. Many people ask, well, why did you do it? And why is it still going on? I was like, oh my God, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. When it comes down to it, it comes down to basic shelter. I actually need a place to live. So going back to my roots, so I come from a long line of Italian artisans from both sides of the family. My dad's side, the Sicilians, were all carpenters, artisans in some respect. They were carpenters, they were masons, seamstresses, amazing chefs, and fun, kooky thinkers, but real practical and pragmatic. So that's where I claim that I really get a lot of my hand skills. On my mom's side, they were kind of from around more southern Italy, Naples, and there were a lot of artists, actors, and they were all very passionate. My mom's side of him, they were always like feuding with each other, and they're always like fiery. They were really, they loved partying, but there was a lot of intellectuals as well. So that was kind of like my cerebral right brain. A lot of that was from my mom's side. So between the two sides, I was born into this family of like really amazing artisans and really great thinkers. So I really have to attribute my own personal skills to growing up with this family of amazing artists. And my two sisters are also artists and great thinkers as well. So so I've kind of carried on this lineage, this tradition of art. And, you know, I was very fortunate at a very young age to have been able to make things and sell things. So I learned very early how to be a self-supporting artist. So so I think that between that and my amazing mentors that I've had over the years, and we can talk more about
we're gonna get
who those
into
people
all
were.
of that.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's the kind of the long answer to your question.
I was trying to describe it to someone visually, like what it, you know, when they have no concept. And some of the things that I came up with was like if Gaudi had a baby with Tim Burton and they built a house.
Great.
You know,
well, I also want to add, there is another artist named Hundertwasser, Friedensreich Hundertwasser. He was from Vienna, and also a very powerful influence on me. Gaudi, absolutely, but I would say even more so Hundertwasser, a real visionary. He was a painter, and then he made the segue into architecture, and he had this old kind of philosophy about how we live in spaces. So Hundertwasser
That's
did
significant.
amazing facades of ceramic facades, mosaic, and also he and I have the same birthday, December 15th. So I always felt like a real kinship. And there was a point about, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, maybe even more. He became an expatriate in New Zealand.
Oh.
And I was going to make a trip. I wanted to meet Hundertwasser. And then I was planning this trip, and he died, so I never actually realized that. But still, his work, I've studied his work for years. I've seen some of his buildings, and so I would say, even though I've never met Hundertwasser or Gaudi, I still think of them as my mentors.
Yeah, that's great. I was not familiar with him, and so I'm going to have to go do some research after we're done here. Sounds very exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's real eccentric. Yeah.
Yeah, no, good. I would love to take our audience on a little bit of a tour through Luna Parc. But before we get started, I wanted to ask, why is it named Luna Parc? I think of Luna Parc as Coney Island, but why did you name it Luna Parc?
Which is it's a park with a C, park with a K, Luna Parc, Coney Island. So I attended the Rhode Island School of Design, and my senior year I spent in Rome on a special program. And just outside of the city limits is a small amusement park, very underwhelming. What like here in America we think of as amusement parks, like a Six Flags amusement park. And this was just a small amusement park. It was, I think, if I remember, it wasn't quite well maintained, but my friends and I used to go there, and that was Luna Parc, Park with the Sea, and it's way out of this. It's out like this, out of the center of the city limits. So it was really sentimental. And when I was trying to think of what could I possibly name the house, and I had some other funny ideas, and I remembered, Luna Parc. That sounded kind of sweet. And it wasn't until years later that I even knew of the original Luna Parc, which was the one in Coney Island. Yeah. So that became kind of the archetype for all amusement parks since, actually. And that was in the late 1800s when that was started to be built.
That's amazing. I love that was the inspiration, this small kind of broken down little amusement park that, I love it.
Right. And it's kind of fitting now because the house and the property have sort of turned into like an art amusement park.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. So let's share Luna Parc with people. Also, I want to note that if you have questions as we're going along, feel free to pop them in the comments and we will get to them after our tour. We love to hear from you. So I am going to figure out how to present my screen. So hang in there with me. All right. There we go. All right, it worked. Okay.
Right.
So what are we seeing here, Ricky?
Oh my God. Well, so imagine this. I was 27 years old and I was looking for a place to live. I was I was renting a room in a house, and all of a sudden it came to be that I was going to have to move out of this space. So it was like, I set out, actually it took about probably 2 years. December of 1988, it was early December. I was 27 years old. And I had this amazing realtor. We pounded the pavement and we came upon this dilapidated little shack. And as soon as I laid eyes on this, I knew that this would be the place I would spend the rest of my life. And I even said, Gail,
amazing to know
this is it. I said, Gail, this is it. And she looked at me and she said, it is. And honestly, I literally loved this house when I first saw it. It's exactly what I wanted. I wanted a fixer-upper. I did not want to have to redo anyone's their own, someone else's renovations. So basically, this was a blank palette, and that was absolutely perfect for me.
That's amazing. And then this is still in the same year, in 1989. We already seeing that it's changed.
Yeah.
Do I remember right
so
that you went in and started like ripping things out almost the like first moment that you had the house?
The same day, the day of
Yeah.
the day of my closing, I spent that first night here. It was really like camping. I mean, it was really rough inside, but I started ripping out the ceilings, and there was wallboard, what do you call, paneling. Anything that wasn't nailed down was out the kitchen door in the morning, and it has not stopped for 36 years. So here I am. This is my first summer, and one of the first things I did, actually, as soon as the snow disappeared, I built this wall that I'm sitting on now, which there are still remains of it still there. I have fortunately learned better building habits, so things that I'm building now will last a lot longer than this wall has.
Okay, and everybody ready for the reveal? Oops, we have just about there. First of all, this is the intro, or the entrance to Luna Parc. Is that right?
Yes. So when you cross, there's a little stream with a bridge. You cross over, and that's really the first thing you see is this sign, the Luna Parc sign.
And then there we have it.
Right. So you can see in the this little sort of like little dollhouse in the very front, that is the original cabin. I kept the original footprint of the house. It was maybe 600 square feet. I'm not sure what that is in metric, but it was small, but it was perfectly suitable for myself. There was only a little bit of plumbing, and it has an outhouse. So that's what I lived with for years. And keep in mind, I was in my late 20s, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then every time I had a little bit.
When you talk over each other, I said, is that circular window been there from the very beginning?
So when I first laid eyes on that dilapidated house, yes, in my mind, I sort of like visually planned out the windows, the fenestration of the facade, and that's what I did. I wanted a big round window right there, and even though at the time that window, I mean, I was on a shoestring budget. I really could not afford that window, and I remember it was $1,200. Keep in mind, this is like 36 years ago. It was a big part of my budget was that window. But I said, I want that window, and I sprung for it. And of course, I never looked back. It actually is. It's really the architecture of the cabin.
Yeah.
So that was an absolute original concept. Literally, as soon as I laid eyes on the house, I kind of figured out what kind of windows I wanted.
That's amazing. So, and Luna Parc starts in the garden that leads up to the house also. So I have a few images here of the entrance of your bottle walls and some other pieces. Can you tell us about kind of the garden? Yeah.
So at this point, the entire property sprawls over 8.5 acres. And I think I did look that up once. I forget how many hectares it is, hectares. So it's 8.5 acres, pretty much sprawling out into the woods. So I have a lot of space to spread out, and I'll have kind of concentrated all sort of in the center of the property, and leaving a buffer of trees around it. So actually, in the summertime, you can't really even see the house from the road.
Yeah.
But
so this is a little pan of the front area. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're seeing?
So this I call my electric garden. So,
Oh,
uh,
so this is actually the back of
so
the house, is that?
that's in the front. There's the
Ah,
back of the house. Yeah, yep.
there we go.
That's the back. That's between my the house and my studio, my studio workshop.
Gotcha.
And so I got involved with this. Gosh, the first of the sculptures, the illuminated sculptures, is dated 1995. So this
Oh,
is real. Actually, this is 30 years that I've been working on this garden now. They're all cast concrete and then completely covered in mosaic also. And there's the one aspect is all the sculptures have some sort of a light aspect. Either the light is on top as a globe, or somehow the sculpture itself is emitting light, but they are all illuminated. And I know that at some point we did see a little nighttime
yes,
shot,
we
which was
do have a clip of it later on. So this
yeah.
is also in the front garden, and we can really see, for me, I can really see kind of the Gaudi influence going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I learned this technique of sculpting. Basically, I taught myself how to do it. This kind of undulating wall is made of rebar and a galvanized lath, and then layers and layers of this polymer-based concrete on top of it. That gives a kind of like that undulating effect. And so I've used that all over the property. Actually, I even teach workshops here at Luna Parc. I teach workshops on this technique, and it's great. It's very versatile. I sort of perfected my own sort of style of mosaic as well, and some of it trial and error. I mean, you just learn
Yeah,
materials, and you learn what to use and what not to use for sure.
yeah. Tell us more about your approach to mosaicing, your own style.
So I use a combination of materials. So I'll use porcelain and glass, and then also I have a full ceramic studio. So I make a lot of my components. So you'll see
Yes.
even in this photo, I see there's a typo on the bottom, by the way. So
Oh, there sure is. Luna Park is spelled wrong. Sorry about that.
that's right. I zero in on it. But so I can also make a lot of the elements that I incorporate into the mosaics. So that's what kind of makes my mosaics really unique. Now, if you
Yeah, and
were
I
to
think I
look
have.
at what's
Oh,
that?
I would say I think I have some pictures of your ceramic work. Oh, too far ahead. We'll get to it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay.
Go ahead.
So if you were to look at the work of Hundertwasser, who I had mentioned,
Mhm.
like this wall in particular, you might actually kind of see that there are some similarities of
Yeah.
style, and so this yeah. So
And then we're moving on
these
to
are all
another one.
examples.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So these are all in the front area, kind of sculptural and mosaics mixed together. I love the
Great.
one towards the back that's a little bit leaning.
Yeah, that's another thing that I learned is about foundations and footings. So,
Ah,
but it gives a
foundations and footing.
foundations and footings. Yeah, it's very important, especially in a
Yes. Yeah.
climate where we have hard frost and heaving and heaving and settling. So, but
Well,
for
I mean,
me, I would never try to never try to straighten these out, because that's what it's like
right.
the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yeah,
Why
exactly.
would you try to straighten it out? Right.
Yes, that was what I was just about to say. I mean, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, is what it is because it leans. So, and
Yeah.
then I love to
Which
use
actually,
giant stepping stones.
the stepping stairs, I'll call them the dot stairs. So actually, so this one in the front, the Howdy Y'all, that was my piece. But a lot of these were done by students and interns that come
Oh,
and spend time here. So I teach ceramic. I teach this tile making and ceramic technique using these dots. So the students they'll get their own dot, and I teach them this technique of regular mosaic, and there's a technique called wet cut mosaic, which is actually done
mm,
with slabs of clay and cutting. And so these go all. There's probably, I don't know, at least 60 of these these dots all around the property. And I have guest artists. I have, like I said, I have students, interns, different people doing these. So that's also a relatively new concept for me, is allowing someone to come and have their own vision. I mean, these are kind of small, but I think that has come with maturity, and that I can allow for a little bit of someone else to participate in the have their own vision as part of this. And I think that it's also important because someday there will be other people managing Luna Parc, late in my life, and then beyond my lifetime, there will be stewards, and some of the work will continue without me. So that is why I feel it's important to incorporate other people's visions, and not just young people, but mainly young people who are learning and wanting to be self-sufficient artists as well.
Yeah, which is so important. I'm just going to pop through a few more of these, just going so we can show everyone. There we go. We've got Luna Parc spelled right.
Good.
So this main entrance, the artichoke or the portico, I remember you saying that this has been one of your harder projects. And for those that are not watching us, the entrance is this kind of amorphic shape, slightly artichoke, very natural looking, and it's the entrance to the house. Will you tell us a little bit more about it?
Okay, so you were correct in saying that this was the most difficult project I've ever done on this house. It took a lot of assistance. I needed a lot of assistance with this project. It took about maybe 6 months, and it is an armature that was made out of metal rebar and a galvanized mesh. And then I bought a sprayer, a concrete sprayer. So I was like blasting the concrete right onto the surface, and then it had to be hand troweled, finished with sponges. So I would have this crew of mixing concrete, sending it up on a hoist. I dump it into my little hopper, spray it on, send it back down, and then I had a couple of people following me, then smoothing it with sponges. So it was a wonderful project, but there was truly blood, sweat, and tears. So, I have some scars to prove the blood. But
the blood from it, and
from the lath, it's a little bit.
Is this
so
inside?
This is that is the view from the inside, but that is actually once you go through that giant portico, the artichoke as I call it, then you're in a little vestibule. And that's where those are. So there are these bottle installations that let light come through. It's really beautiful. It's not direct sunlight, but the room actually glows in these colors. It's really beautiful. So that's how you enter the house. You come through this giant artichoke, this weird contraption, and then you're in this sort of a serene, almost like cathedral-like space. And this is very small. And from there, then you actually enter into the house.
Right. See, and I have some more images of outside, because the house, really, every aspect, every angle has a difference to it. So at each, as you're looking at the house in different, from the south or from the north, you really have a different experience. So this is the southern facade.
Yeah, southeast. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we
have
going on?
The concept with the facades is that as you move around the house, every facade was actually a different material, either a different material or sort of like a different theme, either aesthetically or something about the theme of the material changes as you go around the house.
Right. So, and in this one, I see copper. Is that right?
Yes. So my experience, so wood has always been that was my very first material that I really understood and that I was really facile with. Then I went into metalworking, and metal is a huge part of why this house exists. One was my jewelry, the jewelry that I've made over the years that supported it, but also a lot of the materials, the copper facades, the sculptures on top of the house, are all from years and years of learning different metal techniques.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is that's a real dramatic view of the house. So
yeah. There's the Western facade, and let's see. Okay. And now we've got, okay, we go back to the Western facade, and then mosaic. You were talking earlier about actually making your own components for mosaicing, and this is a beautiful example. I have a couple.
yeah,
So
and I
you
think
are
for myself, yeah, for myself, I feel like it's important, and I love the process of mosaic. You know, adding broken materials and putting it all back together. But I think for me, what's really important is incorporating my own kind of philosophy. And these are images. These figures are pieces that I've been drawing for years and years. I've done them on small scale, like jewelry scale. I blew them up and created them on the house. And so every little area has a little vignette. Okay, so now these bunnies refers to the Fibonacci equation. I think it's just out. I don't think it's just a little bit above is the actual Fibonacci equation. And Fibonacci was a mathematician in the Middle Ages, devised an equation on how all nature replicates, plants or animals, and created the golden mean.
Right.
And he observed rabbits, bunnies, replicating. So that's what we have here. We have the 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 2 plus 3 is 5, 3 plus 5 is 8, and so on, and it expands that way.
I had no idea that bunnies reproducing was part of the Fibonacci sequence. That's amazing.
Yeah, evidently that's what he observed. So for every, say, white or gray bunny, there would be a different color, and that's how the equation relates to how nature replicates.
So here's just some more images of the beautiful mosaic work. Mm-hmm. And then, this is a little bit more. Here's some of the metal work you were referring to. This is on top of the house, I believe.
Yes. Did you go up on the top of the house when you were here?
I did. I did go up through the little entranceway. It was quite. Yes. Yeah. Let's see what we've got. And this is a little bit of the back stairs. You're using a lot of bottles, which is very much a traditional material used in a lot of folk art. We've got the bottle houses and then these bottles.
I actually do try to use a lot of discarded materials as much as possible. And some of them I use, like these bottles, they're, pretty recognizable, but other pieces would be, I'm trying to think of the insulators. Some of the pieces I'll actually cut, and maybe you won't actually recognize what the material is. But then something like bottles are great, and bottles are so plentiful. You can go anywhere and get bottles. These are drilled through and then strung on a threaded rod.
Yeah. So for those that aren't watching us, the actual uprights of a railing have been made with bottles. It's beautiful. And then we're still on the outside. We haven't even got to the inside of the house. I'm going to have to speed up a little bit. But this was one of my favorite places. You have a little chapel that is behind the house.
So so when I was all through my life, when my paternal grandfather was living, he told this story. When he was a young man in Sicily, he witnessed a miracle, and that was he witnessed a little crippled boy being healed. And every time he would tell the story, he would just start crying and said he would never forget it. So this I built in 1999. I said it was my last construction project of the 20th century. And it contains a lot of religious things that people bring. Oh, good. Yes. Rosaries and statuary. And so it's dedicated to my grandfather's memory of the miracle. And then around it is a fence of crutches in honor of the little boy who was healed.
That's amazing. Okay, and now we have made our way into the house. This is the cantina. What are we seeing here?
So the cantina was, in some ways, it was a space that sort of materialized that I didn't realize that it was going to be such a good space. So I made sure that I was able to have a 10-foot ceiling. It's my little gift shop when I have tours. It's an art space. There's a bar for entertaining. So it's like an entertaining space, and it's all mosaic. Floor and walls are all mosaic.
I believe this is
that's a good
pan of it.
Yes.
Is that right?
So yes. So right there is a fallopian tubes and ovaries. So another frequently asked question when people come is, how do I get all these ideas, and where are all these ideas generated? And I explained it's very similar to reproduction, human or any kind of reproduction, where you have the concept, which is conception, and then kind of the gestation period, and then finally the realization, which is popped out. So in the center of that, you see there's the ovum being fertilized. Yes, so good, great, great. And then the fallopian tubes and ovaries at the top. So that's kind of my my metaphor of where ideas are generated, sort of like the miracle of fecundation.
That's great. You have beautiful mosaics everywhere. And then here's a little shot of you looking cute in your kitchen. And then, here's kind of the main area. Can you tell us what we're seeing there?
So I have been very fortunate that I've been able to travel to many, many places. I've been to about 40 different countries around the world. Any place I've been, I have gathered artifacts, artwork, oddities, whatever, and either carried them home, shipped them home, smuggled things home, and so the entire house is a museum of artifacts and oddities, and also sort of a chronicle of my life in travel. So I would say that probably, definitely my, I've traveled mostly in Asia and Southeast Asia, all over Europe. I have not been to Australia yet. I know we have many people in Australia. That is definitely Australia and New Zealand, and are still on my bucket lists. But and Northern Africa I've been to as well. So wherever I've been, I've gathered something, and it's now inside the house. Now, in regards to that, one of my projects now is cataloging all of these artifacts that I've gathered.
Wow.
And someday, when my foundation then takes over, I want all the stories of all the things in the house should all be entered into a database. So that's really the long range plan.
So I have some pictures down the road, but you definitely, since we're talking about it, you are a collector and a curator also. So you are making the work, but you are also like gathering these things and putting them together. Is that how you see it?
So I am collecting the objects, and then the trappings of the house. So I'm creating the vignettes and the display cases to display them. Like even just behind me, there's quite a bit of things just to from my travels. So,
Yeah.
So it's not just the gathering, finding in the gathering, getting it home, but that's definitely part of it. But it's also then displaying it when you get it home. When I get it home, things have to be curated, labels of, you know, the origin, any other stories about it. And at some point I'll have a database that can be accessed either with a phone or some sort of a media, and maybe with a QR code or some sort of a code where maybe when you connect to this, you'll hear my voice and describing that, oh, well, I bought that in Tibet in 2010, or, you know, I bought that in the souk in Morocco and Marrakesh in 2001. So I'll be explaining all this. So, but all that has to be put together. So that is a huge project as well.
Yes.
So, so, you know, this is
so many objects.
my work is not over. You know, it's just like getting something home is one thing,
over.
and then
yeah,
it'll never be over. Exactly.
Let's take you have kind of a world famous bathroom. This bathroom is like nothing you've ever seen. And I have a little bit of, whoops, went too far. There we go. So tell the audience a little bit about this bathroom.
So I'll back up just a little bit. So when I bought the house, I had an outhouse, and I loved the outhouse. You know, I was like in my 20s, I loved my outhouse, but by my early 30s, I had enough of that. And I decided that I was going to break ground for my dream bathroom. So now I've been to some of the Roman baths, the baths of Caracalla, the baths of Diocletian, the beautiful baths in Budapest. So I've seen a lot of bathrooms all over the world. And my goal was to make the most amazing, opulent bathroom that was mosaic, literally the floor to ceiling mosaic. So it took me 5 years. So 1994 to 1999, it took to complete this. And it seemed like a project that would never end. And especially that I was so anxious to deregulate the outhouse and move on.
The outhouse, yes, the bathroom project that goes on for 5 years.
So, but I was able to use the bathroom within maybe like the third or fourth year, but it went on till it was 94 to 99 was the construction of the bathroom.
You also are a woodworker. I mean, you are a jack of all trades, but actually, you know, the saying "a jack of all trades is a master of none." I would say you're a master of all. We have beautiful parquet.
I've got some
mosaics.
And I'll say I have to go back to attributing that to growing up in this family of artisans. There was always someone who knew how to do something. Like I said, there was the carpenters and masons and seamstresses, and no matter what, you know, had to be done, whatever material, there was someone in my family who was a master of it. And so when I kind of absorbed that, and I love materials, any materials, doesn't matter what it is. I just love working with materials and discovering new ones. Although I don't know if there's not many that I haven't at least dabbled with. Some, like I said, I feel like I've mastered, but there are a few others. I wish I had more access to glass blowing, like a hot shop. Yeah. I think that would be really fun to incorporate into my sculptures as well.
Everywhere you look in the house, there is a unique use of a strange object turned into something else. Like we are now looking at a light, like a chandelier. Tell me what we're seeing there.
So I have a good friend who lives in Philadelphia. And he builds these giant, he calls them chandeliers, but they're basically illuminated hanging sculptures. And so he said,
someone else's work? Is that?
He told me, Warren said, I want us to build a sculpture inside your house. So it took us probably a couple of weeks, and everything in this sculpture came from either outside or inside one of my sheds. We even went around the house and grabbing things to incorporate into the chandelier. So this
Well,
was
that's amazing.
definitely facilitated by my friend Warren, and he had the kind of the process where we electrified all these different elements.
It's beautiful. Let's see a few more. These are just some more details of inside the house. You also are an amazing stained glass artist.
Yes,
Tell me about-
I have done a lot of stained glass. Most of what I've done is for the house, but I have done a few commissions, really huge commissions, huge spaces, private commissions. But these are all around the house. You can see them different ways. Wherever I had even if it was not outside, if it was an area where I could cut through the wall and light came through another room, I would put in a stained glass window. So these were, these were all made, gosh, probably over 15 years ago at this point, I think,
Wow.
because those windows went in about 2007, I think. So it was soon after that that I started building these stained glass windows.
And this is the ballroom that we're looking at now, is that right? Or the great room?
The ballroom, yes. Yep, correct. Mm-hmm. So these are all various collections. Some of the artwork on the wall, some of the paintings are mine, and some are other people's, that other artists that I've gathered over the years. And my telephone collection. So the telephones.
Collectors.
Yeah, so the telephones are going to be hooked up to a unit where you can pick up the phone and dial, and you'll get a message on the other side. So those are actually, they're all ready to go, but I need like an electronic person to help me like get the last steps, like figuring out how to hook it up.
Yes, so you collect all kinds of strange things, because what do we have here?
So this is my massive bread tab collection. So many people have had experience with, these little plastic bread closures. And so my idea was to make a mosaic out of these and maybe do like pictures where you see the image from a great distance. And it just got eclipsed by so many other projects. So now the project at this point is just the sheer volume of, I'd say, like tens of thousands of these plastic bread tabs. So they're there. If I ever have the time, I'll make something. I was thinking even like a giant like a lighting, some kind of a light fixture, or let the light come through them.
That would be amazing. All right, and there's just you have wild collections. Taxidermy, dental pieces. You have a little obsession with dental stuff. Is that right?
Oh, it was completely accidental. I didn't really even set out to collect these pieces, but they just kept coming. And all of these came from people I know or relatives of people I know. And like I said, I didn't set out to collect these. This was a complete accidental collection. People would have teeth extracted and then they'd give me their teeth. So this is all probably either direct. People themselves gave me their partials, or deceased.
I love it.
Being that I was going to be a scientist at one point, I built myself a nature lab.
Great.
Here's a little clip showing a room that I didn't have any pictures of. But this is your nature lab.
So when I was at Rhode Island School of Design, we had a lending library called the Nature Lab. And if you were doing a project, you could check out a bone or, like a wet specimen if you're doing an illustration. So I have always had this love of science. And I actually even thought that I would go into biology as a career, specifically entomology, the study of insects. So I've always retained this kind of enthusiasm, passion for biology as well.
Oh, sorry, I lost my I lost my screen. Oh no. There we go. Sorry about that. What are we seeing on the screen right now? Let's see, because I have
this is one of the kooky lamps that I have in my ballroom, and that is one of my paintings in the lower right. And oh, here's one of my sculptures. Okay, so it's a couple of my ceramic pieces. So
I apologize. Yes, let's jump forward to those ceramic pieces. Sorry about that technological struggle there. Now we've got a great picture with Ricky next to his large face pots. And face pots have a pretty great historical context to them, don't they?
Yeah, so they're all basically based on the historic face jugs from people who lived in the southern United States. Many were enslaved people. Some of them were created after slavery was abolished. A lot of African American people would make these face jugs. So there's a long history of maybe about 200 years, maybe not quite 200 years of face jugs. So I've kind of used this concept, but created a sort of more contemporary, like Amy Winehouse, animals, and so I've taken the concept of the face jug, or also called the ugly jug, and it kind of updated the concept. So
that's great. Okay, we got another. There we go. These are just some examples of your work that you have made to support Luna Parc.
Right, and here's one. I have one here also.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so they're all, most of them are done on the potter's wheel, and yeah, there's from my last show I did, and yeah, so I travel to these art shows, and this is pretty much how I support myself in Luna Parc. It was with these face pots now.
It's beautiful. All right. And you are working all the time. A matter of fact, you figured out this last year that you have put in 56,000 hours into Luna Parc.
Right.
That's an unfathomable amount of hours. What makes someone
I can't even imagine. And I was shocked because people would always, kind of jokingly say, "Oh, how many hours have you spent working on this house?" And I thought, well, I better calculate that. So that's what I came up with, and that's a very conservative estimate, also because it was based on an 8-hour day, which is unheard of. I would never put in an 8-hour day. A day would be 10 to 12 or more hours a day is what I end up working.
Oh, that's amazing. There we go.
Here's my famous my electric garden at night. This I just took I don't know, about 2 weeks ago, I think.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so now these are concentrated fairly in like one area between the house and my studio, and I've decided that I'm satisfied with the density of the light. So now this coming summer, I'll start moving to other areas so that eventually the entire house, all around the house, will be surrounded by these concrete sculptures. So anything you can see, like here, like right in the center, anything that is concrete will eventually be clad with mosaic or some sort of a ceramic cladding, or even I'm doing this really great technique of doing a pave technique with rocks and little pebbles, which is really beautiful.
That's amazing. All right, and so we're just about at the end of the tour, but we have one more little clip, and it is about what I believe you're actually speaking in the clip. You're going to tell us about the future of Luna Parc.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people want to know, what is the future of this house? And I'll show you. This is my final resting spot. This is where my ashes will be on display in perpetuity.
I love it. I love this concept. All right.
So exactly 10 years ago, I established a nonprofit foundation. It's called the Luna Parc Atelier Foundation. And it has a couple of different parts. Education, and we invite interns and art students to come and spend time and to learn and to be inspired. And we coach these students on how to become a self-supporting artist. Second part of it is that eventually, ultimately, the foundation will then own everything after I check out, and then operate it as a museum, sculpture park, and also a small art institution in perpetuity.
That's amazing. I think that's a really significant thing for art environments like this, to have a plan for them to exist after the creator has passed on, because often they can just be destroyed. So I love that you have taken care of that and planned for the future there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So.
And there's a kitty. We have.
Oh, this is Lily. I also have Clarissa, just like you. You have an interest in art environments, and
Yes.
And it's funny. I never really set out to build an art environment. It wasn't really what I thought about. I mean, it certainly is. So, but it wasn't. It wasn't actually what I set out to, like, bought the property and said, oh, I'm going to make an art environment. It really just kind of evolved. And but I have seen what does happen when the creator of an environment dies. It either goes into deterioration, vandalization. Sometimes people go in and start like taking things and having it dismantled. But I said, like Scarlett O'Hara, as God is my witness, that'll never happen to Luna Parc. It'll be I want a smooth transition from my lifetime into the foundation.
That's incredible. I appreciate that. So one of my favorite topics, my favorite interesting topics, sometimes controversial topics, is how do we label ourselves as artists? People always ask me that, and I just come up against it and don't know quite what to say. So I'm going to put that question out there to you. What kind of artist are you, Ricky? How do you label yourself?
I've always been a pariah. In my entire career, I've never really fit into any category. So when I would do these art shows, there were contemporary art shows, and my work was a little bit, sometimes it was a little too eccentric and a little bit too funky for some of these like kind of mainstream. So in some ways, I didn't really fit into the mainstream of art and craft. But then I had traditional training. I went to art school, so that sort of disqualified me from the term outsider artist. But I'm definitely sort of outside artist. But so I'm sort of like even that I always felt like I was a little bit of a pariah in an outsider in outsider art as well. But I think now the crossover in terms is not quite so defined. So now I find like I'm doing more shows which are considered more like folk art shows, and my face pots certainly fit into that category.
Yeah, so it's very complicated, those different choices. Are you an outsider artist? Are you a folk artist? I know that people are now using the term visionary artist as kind of a little bit more inclusive.
Yeah, I would use that. I would say that I'm more of a visionary artist, because I basically, I'm relying on what's in my head and what I'm perceiving rather than following any kind of trends. So so I'm using my vision as my guide, So
I know this is a question you've been asked lots, but I'm going to ask it again, and that is, was there a plan for Luna Parc?
My master plan was never to have a master plan. So no, I really didn't have a plan. Like I said earlier, I was like, I didn't set out to build an art environment. Basically, I needed a place to live. And because I love making things, like no matter what it is, no matter what material, I just love making things. And the next step to that would be to embellish the walls. Like behind me these are all corks behind me on the walls. Here I can tip up slightly.
Oh yes,
and you can
the
see
ceilings.
Those are all can lids, cut off can lids on the ceilings. So in that respect, I love recycling. I like reusing, and it's really endless. It's limitless. So I've never really felt limited to any material in particular. I wouldn't say that I'm a ceramist. I wouldn't say that I'm a jeweler. I just love materials, and I love an artist that loves all materials.
It's amazing. So I assume, like in the beginning, you were basically working on Luna Parc for yourself, by yourself, and then many years later, Luna Parc became recognized. Would you talk a little bit about how that changed, and tell us, like, when did people start to know about Ricky Boscarino and Luna Parc?
Well, I remember that I started opening for tours in, I think it was 1998, 1997 or 98, I forget. But by that time, so I'd lived here almost 10 years, like 9 years. But in that period of time, it had already become a spectacle. So it was already something. Even it was just a little house. That little house was just packed full of objects, and I had only really begun developing the yard around the house, but it was far enough along that it was already a spectacle, and people had heard about it, a lot of local people, and then it was like the pyramid effect. It was like kept going and going. People kept talking about it, and by the early 2000s, I was well on my way. It was very, very well known. And
Wow.
then especially when I did my own promotion, and then I was on different television programs, HGTV, did a lot of stories early on.
Oh.
So I've had a lot of publicity that's kind of fed the, fueled the flames and the snowball effect. I always joked how everything, it started off fast and then accelerated. So that's
Okay.
kind of what happened.
So you have 25 years of recognition. That's amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah, and I would, a lot of self-publicity also, but it's really just been kind of word of mouth at this point. I don't even really do any publicity. I do like Instagram. I like posting my projects that I'm doing, but it's turned into like a big, happening. It's like perpetuating itself now.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So I understand that you had a really amazing mentor, a very famous mentor in ceramics, the fabulous Beatrice Wood. Would you tell us a little bit about your experience with her? What did you learn from her?
So I met Beatrice Wood in 1993. She had just turned 101, and I was visiting my friend in Ojai, California, and I said, "Well, there's this woman. She's 100 years old, and we've got to go visit her." And she said on her 100th birthday, her secret to longevity was chocolate and young men. So my friend and I, we were both of us, we were 33, and we brought chocolates over. And at that point, you could just go kind of like knock on the door, and if someone was there, one of her assistants was there, you could, sit and have a conversation with her. So that's what we did. And we had this great, hilarious afternoon with her. And I actually bought one of her pieces. And then, so I went back the next day to have a little bit more interaction with her. And even though she didn't tell me anything specifically about her process, her her glaze formulas, which they're referred to as lusters.
Right.
She said, she said to me, she said, I know you're an artist. You're a true craftsman. She said, you can figure it out. You can figure out how to do this. And she said, she admitted, she said herself, she said, I'm not a true craftsman. I had to really struggle. She said, you're already further ahead because you already know different process. So, so then we had corresponded for a few years back and forth, kind of like, not really love letters, but kind of like flirtation. She loved the flirtation. And then she died. And so we had a kind of a brief interaction, we were pen pals.
Nice.
But I did seek out her process. I kind of pieced it together with my rudimentary chemistry that I knew. And I was able to sort of recreate some of these amazing glazes. So that's, oh, and also she lived to 105. So I've made it my goal. My longevity goal is 106. And
perfect.
Because it just would, yeah. So, and my maternal grandmother lived to 103. So I have a very good possibility. Yeah.
Yeah. You were on your way for sure. And chocolate and young men.
I hope my mind holds out too. So Alzheimer's is a little bit of an issue in my family too, but we'll see.
Keeping your brain busy and being creative, you'll be still doing it right up to the end. I'm positive.
I expect to be making things and selling, entertaining tourists literally for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. So I want to circle back a little bit to those 56,000 hours. And I'm really curious, in my love of folk art environments, what do you think it is within you that made you so, so dedicated, almost, compulsive? I don't want to put that word on you, but what makes you do this amount of artwork over and over and over again? What do you think it is within yourself and within other folk artists?
Well, I would say that one thing is that I want to be noticed. I want the attention. I love the attention. So in order to do that, it's working on the house now for me, making it like even that the electric gardeners I mentioned in the backyard, making it bigger and funkier and fun and more, crazier and bigger. For me, that's really exciting. It's really fun to just see how far I can go with this concept. So, and I think a lot of people, who I'm kind of following this kind of this lineage of folk art environments, had a kind of a similar feeling of, once you got a little bit of attention or a publicity, it really just fuels the whole concept. And it's really hard to say. Like I said earlier, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is, but the reality, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I tell students, especially when I have school groups, I tell them that it all looks like great fun, but it's really only 50% fun, maybe a little bit, maybe it's 60% fun. And the rest of the percentage is hard work.
Yes.
Supporting it. I mean, not just like building all these sculptures, but financially,
right,
keeping this going. New Jersey's a fairly, one of the more expensive places to live in the country. And, we have property taxes. I do have a mortgage, and I have to, there's all these other things to consider when making work. You have to financially, you have to support the whole thing. So,
right. Yeah.
So like I said, with the students, is that it's maybe 55 to 60% fun, and the rest of it is really, really hard work that no one really sees. You can't. That's the other percentage. No one really sees what's like behind the scenes.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
the pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. You know, it's just like, you know, there are other forces that are involved in creating this and keeping it all going.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes I want to run away from home. Yeah, sometimes I want to run away from home, and but then those feelings pass quickly, and I just say, okay, well, just get back to work now.
Just start a new project. Yeah. I want to
Yeah.
remind our audience out there that if they have any questions, please throw them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just keep asking Ricky all my questions. Um, you know, you were talking about supporting Luna Parc, and I'm just realizing, you know, and the work behind it. Um, you are making you are supporting the art of Luna Parc with your own art, and that's having myself been an artist that sold it, a ceramicist also, that went to art fairs and sold. That is a grueling task in itself. How long have you been doing that aspect of it?
40 years. I
Okay, the whole
started
time.
doing I started doing these craft shows, art fairs. Actually, maybe a little more than 40 years actually. So 1985 is when I really started like the circuit of art shows, craft shows. And so really since then, I mean, it was maybe a few years. Okay, so right after college, I graduated RISD in 1982. I had a 3-year apprenticeship in New Haven, Connecticut, working for a jeweler, a goldsmith. And after that, I really just became, just started supporting myself. I also went to NYU Graduate Film School for 1 year, which I loved. But I
Cool.
just decided that the film industry was not, it didn't seem like really practical for me that I was going to be able to really support myself. So I only went there 1 year, and then I went back into making jewelry, and the jewelry business was amazing. I mean, it's really has allowed me to build my house. It allowed me to travel, and really, you know, kind of develop this whole lifestyle. And it wasn't until COVID that killed my jewelry business. And
COVID.
so, I mean, I had already been making these face pots, but kind of like on the side, and jewelry kind of flatlined. And then these face pots, literally, they exploded. And that's what saved my
Love it.
life and saved Luna Parc
Parc.
through the pandemic. And that's what stuck. I still do like dabble with jewelry, but it's not as much as with the face pots. That's really what has supported everything, as well as being able to open the house for tours,
Yeah.
even a little bit more. So between the tours, a little bit of jewelry, the face pots, and some other, you know, commissions and sculptures that I do. Really, I mean, I've supported myself and the house with my artwork for 40 years, basically my entire adult life. And that's what the mission of our foundation is also to teach these young artists how to do that, or at least coach them in being self-supporting artists.
Yeah, which is so significant, and it is such a task. So I commend you. I do have a question that's come in. Catherine is so inspiring. Any suggestions for someone who wants to try mosaics for the first time? Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, so I'm sort of self-taught mosaic artist myself. I think I laid the first mosaic tiles just before I lived here, so like 1987, 88. And what I learned basically is if you're doing exterior work, if you're doing any kind of exterior application, you have to use the correct ceramic material. So if you're using porcelain, glass, or you know, stoneware, all of those are suitable for exterior use in a cold climate. You know, up here in New Jersey, or you know, anywhere northern United States, you have to consider the application, your climate. If you live in a southern climate, I know Australia is a little bit more mild. If you live in a more mild climate, you can get away with a lot more materials, for exterior applications. But I would say get some thin set mortar. It's a tile adhesive. You just get any kind of a substrate, any kind of like a cement board is the best. Start spreading out your thin set and start sticking stuff into it. So really, that's the way you start. I mean, you just start sticking things into the mortar, the thin set mortar. There's a lot of information on, online. Mosaic is really, it's still a really hot art form, media. So there's a lot of information about materials, and depending on your climate, there are better materials to use. I have to be very careful what happens here because we have really, really harsh winters and really, really cold, way below freezing temperatures. And you have to be very careful about, the type of tile, the type of mortar that you use, and the substrate, whatever it's sticking to.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of information out now, YouTube videos, etc. I do teach mosaic workshops here. So if anyone is interested, if you nearby or not nearby, I've had people taking workshops from the UK and from all over. So people do come here for different workshops as well.
That's great. And if people wanted to, Catherine,
right opposite in your, so you have to be very careful about the type of material. I would say only use porcelain or glass, really, for if you're doing exterior applications, right?
Yeah, that's great to know. We have a nice comment going on here. Your creativity is over the top. Thank you for sharing your imagination and the artful Luna Parc and life. Very enjoyable. Thank you, Ricky and Clarissa.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks. I'm glad to inspire.
That's great. So if our audience wanted to get more information about you, where would they find you?
I would say the easiest would be my website, lunaparc.com. Remember, park has a C, not a K. So
yes,
right.
Luna Parc with a C.
Right. And if you just take my name, just as Ricky of Luna Parc, that's my Instagram handle, just no spaces, just Ricky of Luna Parc at Instagram. And that's actually my favorite social media platform to use. I do a lot of my videos of the house. I do sometimes instructional videos. And so Instagram, you could actually message me through Instagram even. And so I'd say that's the best way, Instagram or right through my website.
That's great. We have another question.
What is it like to live here?
What's it like to live there? I assume that means inside Luna Parc or New Jersey. I'm not sure. But I assume
Luna Parc.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, it is a lot of fun to live here. It's not always easy, and winters are not the most comfortable. I mean, the house has gotten pretty large. It's not really well heated. I mean, it's heated in certain spots, but so it's a little rough here to live in the winter time. But I work a lot. I do a lot of interior projects. I have a beautiful workshop that's great. I've got all kinds of things. I've got my welding. I've got my ceramic studio. I've got my jewelry area. I have a little painting studio. So in the wintertime, I go inside, and that's really I work a lot more indoors. So, but it's fun. It gets a lot of attention. Many times in the summertime when I'm not open, I have these gates. I close these big gates. And I can see constantly, I see cars slowing down and trying to look in. You can't really see much in the summertime, but I know that there's a lot of curiosity seekers, and I try to open up as much as I can. But because it is my home, I can only open maybe, I try to about 4 or 5 days each month from May until October. And those days I post those on my website also. And I have it's a booking app. So
Nice.
you can just book a time slot, right?
Amazing. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for
Great.
sharing. I
My
have one more
pleasure.
question, and it
Sure.
is a selfish question. What advice would you have for someone that wants to start building an art environment of their own? What would you tell them?
Well, I would say the most important thing was you have to find a place where you really want to settle. You know, like when I saw this house for the first time, like I said, I knew that this is the place I'd spend the rest of my life. But I think if you're going to put any amount of time, money, effort, all that into a space, you have to be pretty committed to that space. So I'd say that's the most important thing. You have to be really grounded and knowing that you know, you will probably likely never leave the property.
Right.
So I would say that's most important, actually. And I would say that's the case for many people who build art environments. They have this you know, they're very grounded in one place. And you know, unlikely, I mean, you know, many of these people who build art environments, they've been there their whole lives or most of their life.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing. Well, it has been absolutely fabulous having this conversation and letting us get
pleasure.
a little sneak peek into all of the amazingness that is Luna Parc. And I do encourage everyone that's listening to this as a podcast to go and check in the show notes for the images, or go to YouTube and watch the entire video. It's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Ricky.
Thank you for allowing me to talk about my favorite thing, which is my home.
All right. And as I play the outro reel, please, anyone in the audience, feel free to share your gratitude with Ricky for being here. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.